Okay guys, so welcome back to the channel and the next episode in the 911 project. So the last video I made, I installed the flywheel, and I've sort of come up today and yeah, it's a bit difficult to know where to start, but you know, I started on bits on the front of the engine and then looking at the exhaust brackets and so on, but I thought, no, okay, I've got the clutch, let's fit the clutch, so that is that done. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I've got my clutch centering tool here, which fits lovely in there. And in here, you saw me unpack it at home, I've got my new Sachs clutch kit, which you've seen, some grease there, bearing, throughout bearing, and the pressure plate itself. So I'm just going to offer it up just to see how it looks. Okay, so I've just placed that on there, all the parts, and without consulting the manual, I don't know if there's a specific marker other than these studs here, obviously, which you're supposed to use to put the pressure plate onto the flywheel. So I'll check the manual at the moment, but in a minute, sorry. But otherwise, it's looks like it's sitting quite far away. I don't know if that's supposed to be like that or whether that's supposed to actually touch. So I will check. I'll put the old one back on just to see how that looked. Okay, so I just got the old flywheel, clutch plate and pressure plate and just put them all back together, because actually when I took it apart I marked them all, and yeah, I mean, it's all pretty straightforward. I'll just put them back together in the same orientation as this, but I don't think there's any way of actually getting it wrong putting it on there. So I'm just going to check the book now for the torque settings, and then I can get that clutch fitted. I've got a half day off work today. It's Thursday today, and I'm also planning to do the same thing tomorrow. So 12:30 now, got a couple of hours on the Porsche, which is very much needed because I haven't been working on it for a number of weeks now, actually. I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe it's 2 weeks ago, I got this far, so the engine's looking pretty much complete. The gearbox is just missing a few parts, which I actually had to respray after doing them just 2 years ago. And yeah, so I'm hoping to sort of crack on with some of the small parts. And then I've got the brake calipers to do, which is going to be quite a big job. They're sprayed, but I need to put them all back together with the new parts, put the pistons back in, put the new seals in, and then fit them to the car with the braided stainless steel brake hoses. So that's exciting, because obviously these things have been sitting on the shelf for 2 years, and it's really exciting to, you know, start putting them on the car. So it's one step closer to getting it back together, getting it driving, and once it's driving, I'll be able to take it to the paint shop. So the two things that have to happen after putting it all back together is paint shop and then four-wheel alignment, and then I'll be back on the road. So it's really exciting. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the brackets back on the gearbox. I'm going to put I actually did this yesterday, so I put the 2 bolts back in here with this bracket. These are 25 Newton meters torque setting on this flange here, final drive cover flange it's called, I think. I took this off this little bracket here a couple of weeks back, and I know for a fact that I put the little pin that secures it right next to it there, and it's now missing. And I think the Martins that are in here, what I showed you in that last video, they come and take away small parts. Either that or I'm going completely mad, but I know for a fact I put it here and I didn't knock it off, and now it's gone. So most frustrating. But anyway, that's the job for now. I'm going to put the gearbox back together as far as I can, and then next step with the gearbox is putting it back onto the engine. But before I do that, I've got to put the engine positioned under the car there, and I've also got to clean the engine bay, and then I've got to put the exhaust brackets back on, and so on and so forth. So there's quite a bit to do before that happens, but still, it's going to happen very soon. So that's done. I've tightened those bolts up to 25 Newton meters, I think. And let me just tell you what fitting they are. They are a Torx T55 for that. And as I said, I've tightened them to 25 Newton meters. I think that'll be fine. Okay, so as I said, I'd lost the little pin here to fix this little bracket here to this hole. So I've made my own. I actually used one of the old studs from the Land Rover, which was holding the washer fluid pump together. So that seems fine. I'm just going to put a little bit of thing on there. Push that in, and then in it goes. Perfect. Okay, so I've just moved the gearbox out of the way. Gives me more space there around by the engine, and also when I put the engine here to put into the car, I can just bring the gearbox in. Okay, so next job is to secure this canister here. I think it's an air canister for the PSE exhaust, and I just checked back over old footage just to see which orientation this was, and it's pretty much exactly as it lies there. So I've just got to tighten this down onto the fuel rail, onto the manifold. So this is, I believe, I've got to check, but I think it's like something like 20 Newton meters torque wrench setting on that, and that will be that done. Then what I've got to do, and I'll show you more of that in a minute, there's a sleeve which goes over these pipes here. And I have got the original one, the Velcro's come away, but I have actually got some new Velcro, so I'll clean it up and see if I can actually save it. Right, so that's got that nice and tight, so I'm going to move on to that sleeve there. So this is the sleeve in question. It's a bit moth-eaten, but I think I can save it. I know you can buy these online, but you know, if I can save it, then I'm happy to do that. But I've got to clean the glue off either side, give it a general clean up, and then what I've got is this material here, which is like Velcro really, but it's a different type of Velcro, whereas it doesn't have like a male and a female side like the original one. This is the original part that came off here. It just has two sides the same, and it sticks to each other just like that. So it's got a sticky back, and I'm going to give that a go. So I'm going to tidy it up first. Okay, so I gave that a good clean up, brushed it with the brush, and quite a lot of dust came out of it, actually, quite a lot of dirt. There's more cleaning up I could do. I could take this glue away here. I don't actually know why that glue is there, to be honest. But anyway, gave it a good clean up with the acetone, and then blasted it with the compressed air, and that seems to have taken quite well. I think that's going to work quite nicely. So I'm just going to go and try it on the car now. You can actually see there's another one here which I hadn't noticed before, funnily enough, but I think it's these three pipes here. So this is water pipes, and what else have we got here? CCV valve. It's just water pipes and CCV, I think. So it's those three. Let's have a look. I don't think it's that one down there. So just those three pipes I'm going to Velcro together. Okay, so I actually just realized that this fuel feed line is the wrong side of this one, which is annoying because I can't bend them to get them back under here, which means I've got to remove the fuel rail. So either I can remove this bracket here and sort of bend it, but I have the feeling if I were to bend these too much, they'd break. I don't know if they're originally supposed to be flexible or whether they were that hard from the factory. Maybe one of you guys can tell me. But anyway, that doesn't stop me from securing this. So I'm just going to put that in there. I think it's just those three. I'm not going to do it too tightly. Well, maybe I'll actually just leave it like that, in fact. Looks all right to me. Straighten that up. Maybe even like that. Perfect. So, exciting stuff. I'm pretty much there with the engine now. I've rerouted this fuel cable. I did manage to take this bracket off and sort of ease it round, ease it past. I've got to check this oil feed for the IMS bearing because that seems to be flapping about a bit there. So I'll go back to my old drawings to see, or old images to see if I had that, you know, maybe behind these, which is fair enough if I do, because I can just take it off at the feed, at the bearing itself, and slide it through. But otherwise, that is pretty much that. I rerouted another airline for this device here. I'm sorry, but I don't know what that is. Maybe that's actually something to do with the pneumatic system for the sports exhausts. But yeah, I think we're pretty much there. This I need to tighten up, but I'm just going to tighten that up once I know exactly where it goes on the car, because the connector goes into here. I'm guessing it's something like that. Can't do it too much because it starts to pull on the airlines here. But when I'm done with that, then I've got to repaint these pulleys here. I noticed actually here, oh no, where is it, this one? This bearing is gone. It's not bad, but I'd like to do that as well. But otherwise I'm going to leave everything as it is. The serpentine belt is good. So that means, yeah, I'm pretty much there with the engine, which is mega exciting. After years of it sitting there and me tinkering on it, and things that you end up worrying about, you know, it's mad. You know, anybody who does projects like this, I don't know if some go about it in a different way. Maybe they're just absolutely structured and know exactly what they need to get and so on. But silly things like this, you know, I've been concerned about this for ages because I just haven't got round to researching where I can get them. And then at the end of it, I managed to tidy the original one up and save it. So it's just silly things like that. But it's always the way. It's the same with the Land Rover as well. It's just how I am. But the next big thing I just remembered actually is just finishing off the power steering lines, because I'm still yet to complete this DIY system. But I'll tell you about that in a different video. Okay, so I've done some tidying up over there. I'm now gonna bring the car down to have a look at the engine bay to see what sort of work I've got to do in terms of tidying it up. So let's do that now. Taken the cover off this thing for such a long time, and I just keep forgetting how beautiful the paintwork is. I just love this car so much. It's got such a beautiful paint colour. Right, anyway, let's get you in here. Okay, so it's pretty dusty, but you can also see some overspray here from when I did the underside. I've also, that reminds me, got to glue this padding back to the firewall. But actually, it's not looking too bad. I think I'm just going to give it a clean up. It might need some acetone in there, and then we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so I got the light in here, and actually it's, yeah, worse than I thought. So I got some acetone on a rag, very lightly, just brushed off some of the paint, and it's coming up nicely. So I'm just going to carry on doing that and tidy up these parts here, these panels. Okay, so I spent a bit of time cleaning everything up. Well, actually looking at this angle, it's quite dirty still on the back there, but I mean, it's not going to be a show car, and I guess maybe I'll get behind there and clean this bit up. But if you look at it from this angle, which is where I was cleaning from, this is where I've cleaned. So I might actually get back here and clean the this panel here. But I'm just going to whack it up in the air just to make sure everything else is clean around there. I was thinking about taking the header tank off to get clean behind there, but it's just not worth it. If I clean behind there now, after a few thousand miles, it's going to be as dirty as it is now. So I'm just going to leave that. I've cleaned up the opening mechanism here and put some new grease on. And yeah, I might sort of give these a bit of a clean up here as well. But I just noticed that this strut here isn't doing so well anymore. It's just about holding out, but I'll have to replace that at some point in the future. But yeah, I'm going to put it up in the air and have a look at it from underneath. Okay, so that isn't actually dirt along the back there. It's just the overspray from the spray job from the factory. I did just give a little bit of a clean up here. You can see there's some overspray there from the underside, but it's really not that bad. So I think I'm going to leave it like that. Pretty happy with that. The only thing I've got to do in here is glue this. Okay, so I used some spray glue and cleaned all that up in there, obviously, before I used it. And I've just got this wooden stick here helping to push that matting against the firewall. So that should be the last thing, he says, in the engine bay. So I'm just moving from the engine bay back to the engine actually, because it's time now to put the brackets on for the exhaust system. So what I've done is I've removed these coil pack connections and solenoid connections here because it needs to go, the cables need to pass through that. And I'm just gonna find the bolts, which are over there somewhere, and fit that to the engine. But actually, I think what I'm gonna do before that is I'm gonna bring the engine into the middle of the workshop underneath the car, because it's a bit of a pain in the arse to get to over there. So I'm going to move it in place, and so it's ready actually to go in then. Okay. Get this off there straight because it will just wobble otherwise. I've got to get a board now. This is not nerve-wracking at all, honestly. It's only worth about 15 grand, this engine. Let's try and get you over here, actually, so you can see what's going on. Maybe here. Okay, so let's move on. So I've got to find another piece of that thin board now. Okay, so that's on the ramp now. Very good. Okay, see if it will just go down there nicely. Can't actually see anything, which is not very helpful. There we are. Whew. That wasn't the problem. So all I need to do now, I need to turn the engine around. Going the wrong way. It's the first time the engine's moved in 2 years. Amazing. So I'm trying to line it up here. Roughly it. Yeah, I'm just gonna mess around with it for a bit until I get it in the right place. But yeah, well, it doesn't show you anything, does it? If I'm in the center of the engine now, it's, well, yeah, relatively central, but I think it's too far forward. But I'm going to mess about that for a bit and get it into place. And then, I guess, I can put the brackets on for the exhaust and then the gearbox on. Very exciting. Okay, so that is the engine there. I thought you might want to see it, actually. It's quite rare that you actually get to see one of these engines out of the car. Okay, so I've got to put the coil pack protection plates on the engine before I put the brackets on, but I don't have my Porsche Bible with me to tell me all of the torque wrench settings, so I'm actually going to leave this till tomorrow. And I wonder what I'm going to do now. Maybe I'll potter around with the brakes, do a bit more tidying up, but yeah, I'm going to do that tomorrow.